Okay, I'm going to keep this simple. We're going to do an overview of tobacco today, and also I just want to touch bases with you to make sure that you've caught up and also looking ahead. Hey, so let's just do this real quick. I want to give you an idea of how you guys did overall as a midterm and some of the questions that you might have struggled on. But overall, I found that as a class, you did very well. The average was an 88%, and the high score was a 98%. And so just a little bit of a breakdown. It looks like the questions that people got stuck on were, let's see here, the big one was, you'll see that the trends were pretty much solid. I think it looks like the emerging infectious diseases got people, but I went ahead and I often gave credit for that one. Let's see here. Yes, this one right here, morbidity and mortality report. You guys got that. And then the other one that kind of threw people was endemic level, which a lot of times the system would kick it out and say if it was just endemic. And so I went back and gave points for that. But endemic means a disease specific to a geographic area. And then on the birth certificate, it was tobacco. I know that some states had asked for alcohol and drug use, but if you drill up on the CDC, it is tobacco. And I'm wondering if the book says something different, but that's one of the things that I saw a trend in. But overall, you guys did great. And so that was just basically the summary there. Now, if you have any questions about your midterm, or you found that it was off by a little bit on a question, just Canvas message me, and I'll be happy to take a look at it. Okay? So that midterm, I know it was challenging because I asked you to go only one attempt, and you only had one question at a time, and you had essays at the end, so you had to really time yourself. With the final, I'm going to do the same approach, but I'm going to really open it up with the time so that you do not feel stressed by the time. So I'm going to open it up to over 2 hours so that you have time. And I would highly recommend that you take it in the library with high-speed internet, and you take it way in advance. But that midterm kind of gave you a taste of what the final would be like. The other thing I want to hit on is that I want you to start thinking about the final project for this class. You have two options, which I'm discussing right now in the video. I'm also going to have a chat session on Monday for any questions you might have. I'll have Zoom out during my office hours at 3, and I'll send out a notice. And then also, if you'd like to set up an individual appointment with me to do a Zoom or a chat to answer as many questions as you want, know that I'm open to that, and know that you're not, this is not the last time that you're going to hear about this. You're going to be hearing about this over and over and over again, okay? So I want to go ahead and I'm going to click out to that right now and let you kind of know what that is all about. So if you go to your module and actually your discussion post for this week is centered on this, I post in here that, and this is where the topic for this week is for you to start talking about your poster, or whether you want to participate in a hackathon. Now, if you want to do the poster project, basically you could see past poster projects here by clicking on it. This is, again, this discussion post is about getting your head wrapped around the project, not for you to obviously do anything, but to begin to think, okay? So don't jump too far ahead and start thinking you have to post anything as far as details. I'm asking you to think. So the first thing you need to do is you need to see the past poster projects here. And what I'm going to have you do is, because we're not a face-to-face class, is I'm giving you a choice to create a poster in PowerPoint. And I'm also going to say you could use Publisher so that you don't get confused, or any type of publishing platform. Now, here's the story. You would be setting up just a PowerPoint slide in Publisher or in the PowerPoint, and you would follow this rubric here. Okay, so and this is not due until May. So again, this is just for having you to look at this. Or you could participate in the hackathon, which is a 3-day event. And I'm going to click out to here. Oh, the website's not linked. That drives me nuts. Oh, yeah, totally not linked. So let's go out to here. Maybe because I spelled it wrong. There we go. And this is a 3-day hackathon, and it starts on April the 12th, and it ends on April the 14th. And what you do is basically you get into teams, and here are the rules right here. You get into teams, and then by the end of the 3 days, it starts off on Thursday at 2:00, and then at the end of the 3 days, your team presents a product. Not so much a product, but an idea. Okay. So let me go back to the module here. And go back to the overview. And so what I've done is in the discussion post, you could start clicking around and looking at whether you want to do a poster project, which is basically a big it's a PowerPoint setup to be printed out on a poster machine. And no, you do not need to print it out on a poster machine. And it's due at the very end of the semester. Or you could look into participating in the hackathon. Now, if you're interested in participating in the hackathon, I've also put a module in here that you can click on that shows you information on the poster project. Here, these are all the poster project resources and the directions. And then also the hackathon and the directions. So know that those are both hyperlinked into the discussion post. So if you're like trying to track this right now and try to figure this out, know that everything is hyperlinked into the module. Okay, so I'm going back to this module right here and know that everything is hyperlinked in this discussion post and in there. Okay, so take a look at that and kind of get your head wrapped around that. Start thinking about it. And I expect tons and tons of questions. I don't expect you to have your head completely wrapped around it. I want you to start thinking about it. The second thing is you have a chapter review due. It's not due until April 4th, but you could go ahead and knock it out. And then if you want to get caught up or you want to jump ahead, we're not going to have anything due during the March 26th week. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually open up things for you so you could jump ahead if you'd like to do that. And also open up things in the past so you can catch up. So look at this as your catch up or jump ahead week. Now, as far as your PowerPoint, this week we're going to be going over tobacco. And often tobacco is called public health enemy number 1. These are all the big learning objectives, and I'm not going to read them out. But basically, what you need to know, the big takeaway, is that public health was huge in getting tobacco taken off and reduced. And it's highly, highly addictive. And the big takeaway is that public health has used policy and regulation and fees to really get people to stop smoking. But in Kern County, we still smoke more than the rest of California. And one of the big things you need to know is that we're at 21%, and California is at 12%. and the rest of the United States at 19. So we still have a lot of work to do in Kern County. One of the big things that you need to know that teen smokers are really at risk. They are more likely to use alcohol, to get into fights, to have unprotected sex. They have more high-risk behaviors. And you might be like, well, what's the story with tobacco and cigarettes? Why do people get addicted to it so fast? It is so addictive. It hits on, it has these neurotransmitters in there. Do you recognize all these neurotransmitters? They jump in here. So you remember this one? These actually start to, they're found in heroin, but they're also found in the addictive properties of tobacco, nicotine. Cocaine has these too, dopamine and serotonin, but guess what? Nicotine has these too. And this is what nicotine has. It has all of them. So not only does it make someone feel good, make them suppress their appetite, make them feel more like they can do things, but it also makes them concentrate in their memory. Now, here's the thing about that. You could say, wow, this is pretty incredible. But the downside of all this is that it's addictive, and the property of tar in the tobacco and in the different products is horrible for the lungs, and it's completely tied to lung cancer. So this is the downside. So lung cancer, we know for a fact that smoking and tobacco products and e-devices and everything are tied to heart disease and lung cancer. We don't correlate it. We know that there's a cause and effect. So what I want you to take away from this is that nicotine is the addictive drug, okay? And tar is the thing that provides the flavor, but it's a major carcinogen. So you need to know that it's been around for a long time. It was freely distributed during the World War, that women were really encouraged to smoke, and that it really peaked in the mid-60s with 42% of adults smoking. And what we started to see is that in 1964, the Surgeon General started to come in, and that's when we started to see the smoking drop. I love this chart. This chart really starts to show how we start to see the smoking trends drop. Okay, so we can see it starting to drop. But we know that smoking and cancer are highly, highly tied together. And we can actually see that when the smoking rates dropped, the cancer rates dropped. But it still is a problem. Black men have higher rates, but they have declined. Higher rates than American Indians and Alaska Natives. And it's strongly associated with lack of education. And we still have 20% of adults that smoke. And we can see that in Kern County, we're with that trend. But you know that things started to really change. Warning labels came in. They started to put a ban on advertising. The EPA came in and said, hey, environmental tobacco smoke is carcinogenic. And what you need to know is that non-smokers started to say, hey, we have rights. So if people are smoking all over the place in a bar, and I work at a bar, and I'm being exposed to all the secondhand smoke, is that an OSHA problem? Yes, it is. It is exposing someone to a carcinogen, okay? All the people who have asthmatic, who are prone to cancer in their family, and so non-smokers started to stand up and say, we have a right to not be exposed. And I know smokers out there, I know it's a real problem, because if you're addicted to smoking, you really need to have that nicotine. So I hear you. It's really highly addictive, but it's started to push this trend, and right now it's trying to get people to stop smoking altogether. So let me show you the effects. This is really kind of cool. You can see here are the per capita number of cigarettes smoking per year, and then look what happens. You start to see people coming in and really starting to make the trend happen. And what I really love is when if you could see the broadcast ad, the non-smoker right movement, the amendments, and then look, this one's big. This is when they had the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act, where they started to discover that Mickey Mouse was as recognizable as the camel guy. And so they started seeing that they were actually, the tobacco company was targeting children. So they said no. Okay. And then what, really started to get people to stop smoking was increasing the tax increase. So I want to tell you that they started to target youth. So as people die, because smokers die, so they had to replace the smokers. Now, again, I sound like a public health person. We count dead people. And if we see dead people, when we count dead people, that's how we know a disease or something is a public health problem. And so you have to notice on the other flip side is that someone sells something and people start to die, they have to start targeting people younger to replace the people that have died. So ads started to focus in on young people, Joe Camel, and women, and ethnic groups, and really targeting low-income areas because it's, lower education, low-income areas, and really targeting people to get those vulnerable populations, which if you're thinking in your head, hey, that's not fair, well, hello, it's an industry. So yeah, that's how it is. So what happened is that they had a big legal lawsuit, and they actually have found these documentations of saying, hey, we have to target earlier. And so we've got to get them earlier than 18. Now here's a fact. If someone does not start smoking, the chance of them of ever smoking after age 24 is less than 5%. So let me emphasize that again, less than 5%. Okay, so kind of cool statistic there. Someone wants to do a poster project on it or do something around this for the hackathon, and getting some kind of tech device to report underage selling of tobacco, that would be a good idea. And I honestly think marijuana is the next big thing that's going to come in. So they start doing sweet flavors like apple and sweet, because you see kids have a sweet tooth. And young people supposedly have sweet affinity to sweet things. But you know what really changes people? Teenagers are especially sensitive to price. They found that the higher you make taxes, the less teenagers and youth are going to do taxes. So that's the most strategic thing. So they started to increase the taxes. Okay, so big media campaign around taxes, big media campaign about banning smoking places. And we've learned that in getting tobacco-free policies, tobacco-free areas, and taxing tobacco is the way to get people to quit. Okay, so we started to really do that. And we start to see major settlements, and $1.7 billion went into this truth campaign. So you start to see this. But then, remember I mentioned the Family Smoking Prevention Tobacco Act? This required that all advertising get removed off of tobacco products, that they started to put graphic warnings on there, and they disclose all the ingredients in cigarettes. So you might be thinking, well, what about those e-devices, right? Those e-cigarettes? What's the story about that? What's in there? Well, a couple of things you need to know. They're really starting to study this, and they're starting to see that that's doubling among adults, that's marketed on TV, that FDA really currently doesn't have authority to regulate. Now, if this has changed, I haven't heard about it, but but this is something that they're trying to work on every day. And what they've also found is that small children are very, very attracted to these flavors, and they tend to drink them, and then poison control. So you need to know what's in this vapor, okay? There's tons of carcinogens still in this vapor. There are respiratory effects. And so this is why with people with e-devices, you need to take it down completely to no vaping. And if you walk through someone's vape, you are getting exposed to low levels of nicotine, but you are being exposed to nicotine. And I can tell you that if there's a lot of e-vaping in one room, the nicotine levels are in that room. Okay? So just be careful about that. Also, you need to know the litter. All those little cigarette butts, those are all carcinogenic, and they're not biodegradable. So I guess the big question is that since you've seen BC's campus go tobacco-free, have you noticed the campus getting cleaner? That would be an extra credit question if anyone answers that, because I know that you've listened to this whole entire thing. Okay, great. All right. So this is the field trip for extra credit. If you do this, boom, extra credit. And I'll give you a hefty extra credit. All right. I look forward to seeing your discussion post and answering all your questions about whether you want to do the hackathon or do the final poster project. And again, please do not feel like this is all due this week. This is planting a seed so you start to think. And for all those procrastinators out there, I'm doing this for you. And for all the planners out there, don't plan too much ahead. Just do the discussion post. All right? Great. Thanks. Bye. Oh, and then I put these discussion questions in here for the extra credit, especially this one. Do you think, actually, boom, the first discussion post is gone because BC is tobacco free. All right. Have a great week. And I look forward to hearing from you guys. All right. Bye.